Professor Pallas here with the weekly wrap-up for week 13, NTD420, spring 2020. Let's review the results of our weekly class opinion poll. This is part of your participation in this class. This week we learned about surgical intervention as a possible treatment for obesity and weight management. This survey was asking what you personally thought was the highest level of risk associated with bariatric surgery. 4% of the class were concerned with a risk for vitamin and mineral deficiencies. 85% of the class were concerned with the risk for weight regain, and 11% of the class were concerned with the risk for dehydration. All three of these are valid and appropriate risks for you to have if you have a client that is considering bariatric surgery as an intervention for weight management. Only 4% of you were concerned about the risk for vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And I want to encourage you to think about this because it's very important to understand that there is a high risk for vitamin and mineral deficiencies after a surgical procedure that either removes or bypasses parts of the stomach and small intestine. Remember that key nutrients are absorbed in different areas of the GI tract. And if these areas are removed or bypassed, then those key nutrients are not going to be absorbed in those areas, and the need for supplementation increases significantly. Let's take a minute here and remember what we learned about nutrient absorption in our nutrition classes. This is a snapshot, a graphic, if you will, of nutrient absorption in the GI tract. It takes you from the esophagus all the way through the large intestine, and it shows you where the different vitamins and minerals are absorbed in those portions of the GI tract. This is a great slide for you to keep. When you're counseling clients, if you have someone who's considering surgical intervention, you can see what areas might be bypassed or removed to identify what vitamins and nutrients they might be at risk to be deficient in. This is also a great slide if you're ever counseling someone who was injured in an accident and therefore lost part of their GI tract or had part of their GI tract compromised. On this slide, I went ahead and circled the nutrients that are absorbed in the stomach and the duodenum. These are the two areas that are typically bypassed or reduced in the Roux-en-Y surgical procedure that is often used to treat obesity. So you can see listed out here all of the nutrients that you are at risk to be deficient in after you have this surgical procedure. Some of the nutrients are still absorbed in other areas of the GI tract that remain intact, but you have to recognize that there's a large area, surface area for absorption that's been bypassed or removed with this surgical procedure. And it is therefore important for people who've had this procedure to supplement and to have regular lab values taken to make sure that they're not developing deficiencies later in life because they have lower absorption rates. Due dates. Well, we are winding down the semester. Remember that your group project is due May 5th by 11:59 p.m. This is the written paper, the PowerPoint slide deck, the recorded video presentation, and your peer evaluation forms. If you have any questions about this, please reach out and ask me. This is a big part of your grade, and it's due on May 5th. It's very important that you develop that obesity treatment and prevention program thoroughly. One of the best ways to do this, it sounds simple, but give your program a name. That helps give it an identity and will help you direct the work that you're doing. Your final group discussion is this week. The initial post is due Wednesday. The peer responses are due Sunday. And your final reflection paper is due the week of finals week, which is May 6th through 11th. Your final reflection paper is going to refer back to the personal objective that you declared for yourself during week 1 in this class. In that very first class survey, you selected your personal objective for the course, and you then went on to discuss this in your very first discussion board post. So go back and review that, and then start to think about what you learned this semester and how it relates to the objective you had set for yourself personally. In that final reflection paper, there are several elements that you must include and write about in order to earn full points. You need to define an evidence-based practice. So you've been running an evidence-based practice in this class because you've been writing in APA style and using peer-reviewed references to support statements that you make in your writing. So that's part of running an evidence-based practice. Refer to your understanding of the energy balance equation and the importance of the factors on both the energy in and especially the energy out side of the equation. Discuss health effects of obesity. Discuss non-health effects of obesity. Identify and discuss at least 2 factors that define an obesogenic environment. And finally, wrap up the paper by discussing how has your perspective on obesity developed this semester. So you might say that it's changed. You might say that your opinions have been strengthened. You might say that your opinions have been weakened. Whatever has happened, talk about it and use examples of why your perspective has changed. So let's take a quick minute and review what we learned this week during week 13. We talked about the role of public policy, and it's important to recognize that there's a role for you to play in public policy as a nutritional professional, and you can be highly active, moderately active, or lightly active. But with the internet, it's easier than ever to play a role. It's also important to recognize that public policy may inform obesogenic environments, and we know that environment does play a role in obesity and weight status for many people. This week, we also started to discuss the condition of pediatric obesity or childhood obesity. This is a growing concern. Interventions for children are different than interventions for adults. It's important to remember that we don't use the word diet for children. We're more concerned with establishing healthy eating patterns, establishing healthy routines that include physical activity, creating healthy habits. And because they're still children, and they have that huge growth opportunity during adolescence, we want to position them to grow into the weight, the extra weight that they might be carrying, so that during that growth spurt, they have a chance, if you will, to catch up. The goal for pediatrics for children is weight maintenance, not weight loss. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions or any concerns, please reach out to me. Have a great week.